Chapter 20, Happy Day, Haunted Night. The next day, it was difficult for the Blue Jays to think of anything except their upcoming night with the Howler. Even if they forgot about it for a few minutes, the other campers would come up to them and go, "Ahoo, ahoo." In fact, they did it so often, I think the Blue Jays were having second thoughts about spending the night in Haunted Hollow at all. In the Nature Center, however, there was a lot going on. During the first session in the morning, Katie and Miss Mack brought in a stranger, a very nice stranger, as it turned out. He was Dr. Singleton, the veterinarian from the wildlife refuge who had helped Katie with Lovey's wing when she was first rescued. Dr. Singleton's here to see if Lovey is healed enough to be released, Miss Mack explained. The vet was a big, tall man with a full black beard. But he was as gentle as he was big and was a real expert on birds. When the kids in the first session watched him, he examined Lovey carefully. "She looks completely healed," he said, "and I imagine she's getting a little tired of her crate. Her crate was rather plain compared to my cage. She didn't have any fun things to play with like I do." "I think we could try her out today," he said. Katie looked at her watch. "It's almost time for a break between sessions. I'll make an announcement." Dr. Singleton stayed and answered questions while she went down to the office. Then Miss Mack introduced him to Og and me. "You're a fine specimen," he said to me. "I don't think you need my help at all." I hopped on my wheel to show him he was right. "Ah, Ranaclimitans," he said to Og. "No, his name is Og," I squeaked, but he didn't understand me. "I guess you kids are used to his interesting twang," he said. After living next to Og for months, I was very used to it. Then Dr. Singleton turned his attention to Jake the snake. "How did you end up in a cage?" he asked Jake. Jake stuck his tongue out, as usual. How rude. Then we heard Katie on the loudspeaker. "Attention campers," her voice boomed. "We are going to try to release Lovey into the wild after this session. Anyone who wants to participate, come directly to the Nature Center." Within minutes, there was a rush, a dash, no, a stampede to the Nature Center as every single camper showed up. Miss Mack made them form a half circle in front of the building. Then she asked Saya, Brad, and Noah to be her assistants. They had scored the highest on the quiz. Miranda picked up my cage so I could watch. What a thoughtful girl. Brad and Noah carried out Lovey Dubby's crate. Her head poked up out of the top as she watched everyone and everything. Then Dr. Singleton carefully lifted Lovey out of the crate and showed Saya how to hold her. Saya held Lovey just the way she showed her and looked completely confident. "First, put her down on the porch and let her try her wings," the vet told her. When Lovey touched the ground, the first thing she did was spread her wings. I couldn't even tell which one had been injured. Then she flapped her wings and hopped as if ready for takeoff. The kids in the crowd stayed pretty quiet as they'd been instructed. But they couldn't help oohing and ahhing a little. Neither could I. "That's great," Dr. Singleton said. That hopping means she's ready to fly. But we need a big open space. Pick her up again, Saya, if you can." Then he had her take Lovey up the hill to the spot where I'd viewed the two hollows. It was a high open meadow surrounded by trees. The other campers and Miranda carrying my cage followed quietly. It was time for Saya to put her on the ground and see if she flew. But at the last minute, Saya didn't do it. Instead, she turned to Noah and handed Lovey over. "Here, Noah, I think you should do this," she said. That was just about the nicest thing I'd ever seen a human do. I held my breath as Noah set her on the ground, and then, with no further encouragement, she flapped her wings and took off, flying up to a very high treetop in the distance. The crowd couldn't stay quiet any longer. They let out a cheer. Dr. Singleton looked as pleased as Katie and Miss Mack. "She knew just what to do," he said. "You all did a great job with her. Keep an eye out for her for a while, but I don't think there'll be a problem." Just then, Lovey flew away from the tree and circled right over the Nature Center. We watched her until she flew out of sight. "Any questions?" Katie asked while we were standing in the meadow. Noah slowly raised his hand. "I was just wondering, what about the snake?" Dr. Singleton nodded. "I was thinking about him too. He looked a little confined to me. How would you feel about releasing him?" Katie and Miss Mack looked out at the campers. "Should we take a vote?" Miss Mack asked. They hardly needed a vote at all. Just about everybody thought Jake would be happier outside of his cage. This time, Brad was the one who got to let him out of his cage. It didn't take long for Jake to slither away and disappear in the grass. Again, the crowd cheered. Boy, I heard Brad say, nothing like this ever happened at my old camp. It was a thrilling sight seeing Lovey and Jake go free. I only hoped I wouldn't be next. But I had nothing to fear. The session was over and I was returned to the nature center. It was a little lonely there without Lovey, and I even missed Jake. A little. But at least I had my friend, Ronna Clemiddens, to keep me company. Whoever knew that a little frog had such a fancy name? All of the excitement at the Nature Center had taken my mind off of Haunted Hollow, at least for a little while. In fact, I was so relaxed, I settled in for a long doze in the rec room. Miss Mack came in to check on Og and me. She told me that she was taking all the campers except the Blue Jays to the nearest town to see a movie. See you later, she said. Then she winked at me. I had no idea why. I managed to doze off again, but I was awakened abruptly when I heard pounding footsteps racing toward me. Humphrey Dumpty, AJ shouted excitedly. You're coming with us to Haunted Hollow. Who, me? I was astounded. Yep, Hap Holloway said it was okay as long as we make sure your cage is locked at all times and keep you in our tent, he explained. We didn't want you to miss out. There are some things I wouldn't mind missing out on, and the Howler was one of them. But AJ was already holding my cage and hurrying back to the dining hall. It's been nice knowing you, Og, I called back to my friend. There wasn't even time to say goodbye. That sounds like Humphrey's a little nervous. It was dark outside. Instead of hiking in the dark, Hap took us all in a small bus and drove us what seemed like a long, long, long way from Camp Happy Hollow. Even though Haunted Hollow was next door to our camp, to get there we had to drive on a road that wound round and round a hill. Blue Jays, he said as he drove, you are about to join a small but special group of campers. Few have earned the right to go to Haunted Hollow, but none will ever forget it. The Howler. He opened his mouth wide and let out the most spine-tingling, "Ow!" I'd heard yet. I dove under my bedding just in case Hap really was the Howler. At last, the bus stopped and Hap let us out. It was still quite a hike to the campground where Elda was waiting. Several tents had been set up and a fire was blazing in a big stone pit. The flames cast orange and yellow shadows like huge fingers on the nearby trees. Welcome to Haunted Hollow, Aldo said. Somehow he didn't seem as jolly and carefree as usual. Take a seat. The Blue Jay sat on big rocks around the campfire. AJ put my cage next to his feet, and I could feel the heat from the fire. As far as I was concerned, I was a little too close for comfort. And even though my friends had waited a long time for this night, they were suddenly unusually quiet. As I glanced over at the dense brush nearby, I thought I saw some eyes. Maybe the friendly eyes of Goldenrod and her friends watching these strange humans. I hope they were the only wild creatures hanging around. Hap stood near the fire and addressed the campers. Like Eldo, he was acting very serious. Boys, you are about to share in the secret of Haunted Hollow, he began. 20 years ago, I bought this camp. The man I bought it from didn't want to sell it, but he ran out of money and had no choice. The strange shadows made Hap's face and hair even redder than usual. He was a crazy kind of fellow with white hair to his shoulders and a white beard to his waist. On the day he signed the papers to hand the land over to me, he said, "It will never truly be yours, Holloway, for I will haunt this land as long as I live, and even after." The boys gasped, and I accidentally let out an eek. I tore down his small cabin that was on this spot. But once a year, the best campers are chosen to come here to show him that even if the place is haunted, we are not afraid, he continued. My cousin saw him last year, Richie said, his eyes wide. Hap nodded. So far, the Howler has shown up every year. But this year, who knows? So I want you all to shout with me. We are not afraid! We are not afraid! The Blue Jays didn't exactly shout at first, but they joined in. We are not afraid! We are not afraid! I joined in too, as the voices got louder and louder. We are not afraid! We are not afraid! Then They got more confident, and the volume increased. "We are not afraid! We are not afraid!" And then it happened. A howl so loud, so hideous, so unspeakably scary, I think my heart stopped beating. "Ow! Ow!" No one human could possibly make that noise that loud. The noise grew closer, and there was a rustling in the grass. "Ow! Ow!" The blue jays all jumped up screaming and started running around in circles. "Ow! Ow!" There I was, alone on the ground, with the howler approaching. I closed my eyes. Then I felt my cage move. It had grabbed me. "Don't worry, Humphrey. I've got you. You're safe," a familiar voice assured me. It was Aldo. "Ow! Ow!" It was so close now, I thought I heard it breathing. "Ow! Ow! We fooled you." Then there were peals of laughter as out from behind the trees and the bushes came all the other campers. Saya, Miranda, Garth, Abby, even Itchy Sam. They were pointing and laughing at the blue jay as the blue jay stood staring in total confusion. "What are you doing here?" AJ said when he saw his brother Ty in the crowd. Hap was laughing harder than anyone. "You want to tell them, Saya?" he asked. Saya smiled but shook her head. "You do it, please." Hap gathered the whole group around the campfire. "One of the counselors usually comes out here and howls," he explained. But when Saya explained that she didn't like the idea of so many campers being left out, we cooked up this idea. We figured this was a way for all campers to be a part of the legend of the Howler and to have a little fun. What do you think? "I was scared to death," Simon said. He looked a little pale. "I thought I had died of fright," Brad added. "But then I saw you guys. Pretty funny. You fooled us all right. Listen up, folks. This is our secret," Hap explained. "What happens here tonight doesn't get out. We don't want to ruin the surprise for next year's campers, okay?" Everyone agreed. I was glad to see that the Blue Jays were good sports about the trick, and even continued with lots of songs and toasted marshmallows, which are a little too messy for hamsters. And Aldo even entertained by balancing a broom on one finger for a long, long, long time. My favorite trick? That was my favorite trick. When it was bedtime, the Blue Jays went to their tents, but the other campers returned to Camp Happy Hollow, and I went with them. Og and I both slept in Miss Mac's cabin that night, and even though I'm nocturnal, I slept the whole night through. Note to self, I guess it's okay to fib a little about something like a howler, as long as it's for fun. Oh my goodness, were you scared? I was a little nervous too, but I had a feeling that they were going to bring the other campers there. That was really a great idea by Saya. So we have one more chapter left, and it's called The End in the Beginning.